Did you copy the screen key?
I did everything. All I gotta hit is go on.
That's doing it. All right, there we go. Hey guys, what's going on? Tim Avery here with Visual Testaments TV, Global Prophetic News. We'll just wait for a little bit. We have some breaking news from the ruling on South Carolina voter registration. It's something to smile about for South Carolina, that's for sure. If you don't mind, legal integrity when it comes to our elections, that's what this whole ruling was all about. And I have the PIFL or PILF fact sheet here to discuss this ruling that the district court had today for the Public Interest Legal Foundation had this ruling. And so this kind of comes off the curtails of not being able to validate or investigate our voter roll in the past elections, but this will help us in so many different ways with that. So I'm going to talk about that tonight and also show some videos of some other things that are kind of concerning right now with voting registration. But as people are hopping on, again, make sure that you are registered to vote. Make sure that you do that. It's an imperative for our country this time around, as it always is, but especially now. The time is late. I've said this over and over again. 45 million Christians did not vote in 2020. 15 million aren't even registered to vote now. Hopefully that number has significantly changed. I know I've been talking about that, and hopefully I'm having an impact at some point. So if you are watching this and you're registered to vote, I'm going to put this on it right now. Are you already registered to vote? Because I think it's important for us right now to make sure that we're registered to vote. But I do have some insight today on a brand new ruling from our government, from our South Carolina State new district court ruling for state of South Carolina. I think you guys are going to love this at all. You probably already saw the news, and I do want to get your guys' reaction on this. So please fill up our comments and what you guys think about this. But I'm just read this real quick. I said, so this is the new South Carolina ruling to smile about. So the court declares that South Carolina statewide voter registration, the voter registration list is a record subject to inspection. So this allows, when it comes to being inspected by election integrity activists, that they can inspect our voters' registration to make sure that they can actually verify that they're legal citizens, right? And also when it comes to closing out of validating a registration, validating election, validating is a late night for me. I've been running around trying to get all this certificates. So you have to excuse me. Validating the election later on in November. It just helps us tremendously because we were able to validate all of our elections that they're true and accurate, and they're very integrous. Okay, so this is amazing. So I'm going to read this. I want you guys to read along with me on this, and so I'm going to share screen this, and then we can read this together. But this is from the Public Interest Legal Foundation. So it says this. In February 2024, the Public Interest Legal Foundation requested a copy of South Carolina's statewide voter roll. The South Carolina Elections Commission refused to provide a copy of the voter roll to PILF, citing a state law prohibiting out-of-state residents organization from purchasing the voter roll. Now, they were trying to validate the election for our state. Now, in March 2024, PILF sued the executive director of the South Carolina Elections Commission, Howard Knapp, for violating the National Voter Registration Act of 1993 by refusing to disclose the statewide voter roll, trying to validate every person who actually voted. It needs to be integrous. All of our elections it needs to be integrous. And I'm going to show you some video clips, some other states who are having problems with this right now, specifically Georgia, specifically I think we also have Ohio that are having problems right now. I'll show a video about that. And also Arizona. So a lot of these are swing states. I think all those are swing states. North Carolina, Arizona, Ohio, a lot of those are swing states. And so this is the reason why I want to bring this up, because I want to show some video clips today of what's been happening in those other states and how they're having a hard time with voter registration, but also validating that these people who are registered to vote are actually U.S. citizens. And we'll share a little bit about that today. So, but I wanted to talk about this because in Section 8, okay, so South Carolina is I'm reading down here. So South Carolina is in violation of the NVRA's public disclosure provision, which requires states to provide their voter rolls for public inspection. Section 8, Section 8 of the NVRA requires states to make available all records concerning the implementation of programs and activities conducted for the purpose of ensuring the accuracy and currency of officials' lists of eligible voters. Thanks to PILF's litigation, there is well-established precedent that this provision of the NVRA means the public has a right to inspect states' voter rolls, which I think we need to do that regardless of your Republican, Democrat, Independent. You want this. You want to have an election that is integrous, that people can come and inspect it. Make sure that people who are voting, are actual U.S. citizens. And the reason why I say that, and that's something to smile about, is that the South Carolina, the rules on this is because here shortly, I'm going to show you some other states who are struggling with this right now. As much as I'm struggling to talk right now, there are states right now who are struggling to validate who they have that are actually voting right now. And they're trying to figure out how the heck are they going to be able to validate this. And I'll show you that here in just a little bit. And also some election fraud that's been going on around the country right now, which is something that we need to really highlight because I think it's crazy, especially with us less than 50 days to our election. Okay. So that's this. Public has a right to inspect for voter rolls. Okay, so right now with this ruling gives us a big win because it comes to validating the authenticity of our 2024 election, but also from here on out, no other state or local jurisdictions can create laws or rules limiting access to voter rolls. So this ruling enables us for be able to have integrous elections moving forward, and no other state laws or local law, they can't even create laws to try to overturn that. Okay, so that's something amazingly to smile about. So I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. I think that's in and of itself amazing. All right, so so the reason why I say this is because there is some election issues right now that is going on, and I wanted to share this with you guys. And so I'm going to play this other video, and I think this is in I said Arizona and Ohio. So let me cue this up for us, and I'll let you hear this.
Okay. Voting in Arizona, the provision the court allowed the state to enforce would require officials to turn away anyone trying to register to vote if they do not have proof of citizenship. In Ohio, hundreds could face prosecution for voting illegally in the elections. Ohio's Secretary of State identified 597 non-citizens who are illegally registered to vote. So far, they say 138 may have voted in an election.
So think about that. 598 people. I mean, these are just the people that they found. Not even eligible people to vote, but they voted in the past, and so we all know that there was some crazy stuff going on in 2020, and I'm gonna play that too. But especially in the state of Georgia, we all saw the tape, and I've got the video again of them pulling election ballots from underneath the table, the security camera. We got that still. So there's some crazy things still happening in Georgia. They're trying to set rules, that actually the GOP actually put some rules in that they have to hand count those, and a lot of Democrats are a little PO'd about that. And I'm going to share that here in a little bit too. But also there's this, I don't know if you've seen this, and maybe you guys have experienced this yourself, that there's actually some voter scams that's kind of been going on lately too. So let's look at this.
Prevent registered voters from casting their ballot here in Michigan in November. Thanks for joining us here at 6. I'm Kimberly Gill.
And I'm Damon Fernandez in for Devin Skilling. Several viewers are reaching out to help me, Hank, after receiving concerning text messages over the weekend. In fact, even a 12-year-old boy received messages regarding his voting plans for November.
Consumer investigator Hank Winchester is live in Detroit. Hank, this is concerning.
Kimberly, DeMond, it certainly is, because number one, we want to make sure that everybody who wants to vote has an opportunity to do so. We also know how critical Michigan is in the presidential election. It all starts with these text messages that many people have been receiving during the last few days. And as you will see, the information they're getting, well, it's concerning. It starts with a text message like this one. What did you think when you got this message?
Well,
I'm gonna back this up so you can see this text message. Tell me if you've got a text message like this.
They're getting, well, it's concerning.
Look at this. Did you get a text message that reads like this? We have We have you in our records as not registered to vote. Check your registration status. So these are scam texts. So comment below. Have you guys gotten texts like this? Have you seen texts like this on your phone? Because these are obviously happening right now in the state of Michigan, but I'm curious because these are you'll hear, I'll play more of this here in a second, that these people are getting these from different phone numbers that are not of their area code. And so these are kind of circling around. But so we're going to talk about this. So let's play the rest of this.
It starts with a text message like this one. What did you think when you got this message?
Well, this is like the third time they sent it to me.
Mano D'Angelo, a longtime registered voter here in Michigan, says that he was actually being encouraged to vote in another state, like Iowa.
The first 2 times I just blew it off thinking it was spam.
Right.
And I didn't really give it a lot of thought. But then they were very persistent and they kept sending this message to me.
My Help Me Hank tip line flooded with viewers calling saying they too received suspicious text messages about voting. Some say they were being asked for their social security numbers. This woman in Detroit concerned about the message she received.
But something stopped me. Something told me to look at the number. It was not from Michigan. It was from Georgia.
This 7th grader in Canton also got a text message about voting in November.
I got a text message saying I wasn't registered to vote. I'm only 12. I knew that wasn't right. I didn't click on it, and I told my mom, and we deleted it.
And our own Karen Drew also getting a text message that seemed concerning.
So we have you in our records as not signed up to receive a ballot in the mail.
And you're already registered.
Yeah. So
you didn't click it.
I did not click. I actually did think of you because I'm like, I know we can't do that. But,
sure.
But this is one, I think I got about 4 different text messages this weekend.
Investigators say these thieves may be trying to steal your identity or impact your ability to vote in November. I received this statement from a spokesperson for the Secretary of State here in Michigan. It reads, "Our office has received several complaints from Michigan voters concerned about text messages they've received regarding their voter registration status. Our Office of Investigative Services is reviewing the complaint."
In Georgia, the new pro-Trump majority of the Georgia state election.
And I'm going to show you that here in a little bit about this, but I wanted to talk particularly about take this off the stage here about that scam, because if you're getting text scams like that, these guys are honestly just trying to trying to get your social security number, and don't click on it, just delete it is what the advice they gave after that. It's just to go ahead and delete those texts. So if you've gotten those texts about registering, don't do that, especially if you've already registered. Like, there's no sense of trying to, it's just like those USPS scams that those scam texts that you get, or any other type of scam. And so there'll probably be more of an uptick of these types of scams. So I say all that to say this: go to your voter registration office to get registered. It takes 15 minutes. You could do it online, but if you don't want to go there, you want to do it in person to make sure that you're actually registered. You're not fall into some type of scam. Just go to the voter registration office. It's going to take you 15 minutes. If you don't have 15 minutes, we don't really have anything to complain about if you're not going to register to vote and not go through the process of actually voting. I want to ensure you that. I want to encourage you that it's important that you vote, especially if you're a Christian. Okay, even if you're a Democrat or whatever, you just need to register to vote. Do it the right way to make sure you're registered. All right. So I think that's definitely important. So please do so. All right. So let me talk. Show this other thing about some other rules, because if you don't vote, if you don't register properly, there's issues right now that are still happening in other states like North Carolina and Georgia. And I believe this one is in Georgia as well. Let's see.
A recorder's office could affect tens of thousands of voters in November. Last week, they found nearly 100,000 people who were allowed to register to vote, never having shown proof of U.S. citizenship. And now, the Maricopa County Recorder's Office is suing the Arizona Secretary of State and asking the state Supreme Court to determine if they can vote the full ballots in the election. Fox 10's Ashley Rodriguez is live now to break down what happened here. Ashley.
This error happened in every county across the state since 2004, 2 decades. Now, the problem, it's an easy fix. The MVD needed to recode their software. In fact, they already did that. The problem is fixed. But the question is now, how do we treat those 98,000 people before the 2024 election? That's just 48 days away.
This isn't a comfortable position to be in by any stretch.
Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes says he will respond to the Maricopa County Recorder's lawsuit on Wednesday. The Recorder's office is suing him, claiming to have found more than 98,000 people who were allowed to vote the full ballot in Arizona for 2 decades when they never showed proof of U.S. citizenship. Here's what happened. If a driver received a license prior to 1996, there was no proof of citizenship in the Motor Vehicle Division records. Since 2004, Arizona requires a voter provide documented proof of citizenship. So if a driver with an older license registers to vote, the MVD thinks they have proof of citizenship in the system and allows them to vote a full ballot. Keep in mind, the Recorder says the majority of these voters are most likely U.S. citizens. They just don't have documented proof. The largest group of them are Republicans, followed by independents and Democrats. Most of them are between the ages of 45 and 60 years old, and more than 60% are in Maricopa County. The Recorder's office wants these 98,000 people to not be allowed to vote on a full ballot, which includes federal, state, and local elections, but instead a federal-only ballot, which only includes the president, U.S. Senator, and U.S. House of Representatives.
Every single one of these voters has met the minimum criteria in swearing an affirmation under penalty of perjury that they would have to do to vote in every election across the rest of the United States of America. Only Arizona has this, what I think is an unreasonable extra burden on its voters.
Maricopa County Recorder Stephen Richer wrote on X, the secretary argues that it is too close to the election to implement such a change and that would be unduly burdensome on voters and deprive them of their voting rights. That is why we are going to the courts to get a clear answer.
This happened because.
And I'll say this, I think it's important. I don't know if they've already mentioned it, but some of these people that are 100,000, a part of this 98,000 people who are legally registered to vote or didn't really show their citizenship because of prior to 1996, I could see the fault in that. They have to go back and, just re-register. And I don't think this is going to be a huge problem in the sense of making sure that these people are accurately accounted for, because, and this is a kind of an ongoing thing. I think there's like 3 or 4 more days that have passed since this was actually reported on the news, but they go on to say this, is that a lot of these people are actually, majority of these people are Republicans. So the reason why I'm saying that now is to understand, like, if they try to come out with some of these rules to block even us to vote, this is another reason why you need to go register to vote. Make sure you are registered to vote. Make sure that when you were registered to vote, was it prior to 1996? I don't know if this is whatever state you live in, but for South Carolina, I know this could be an issue too, so just make sure that you go and you're accurately registered to vote. There's no issues, because I don't want anybody taking anybody's power to go vote. So this is just a call of just due diligence. I'll say it like that, to go make sure that you're properly registered to vote. There's no issues coming down the pike that one might prevent you from actually voting or casting your vote. Okay. So that's the reason why I show you this, because 100,000 voters, this is actually, I'm see if they'll say it here.
We've got policies that are being driven by conspiracy theories, and we have for a long time.
And Fontes also noted that the votes this group cast in past election are cast. There's no.
All right, so that's that. I'll say that. But yeah, that's what they had mentioned, that a lot of these people who are a part of this 98,000 people are, majority of them are Republicans, followed by Democrats and independents and things like that. So just like I said, just go make sure you're properly registered to vote. Go to your voter registrations office in any state, any county, wherever you are, not just South Carolina, everywhere, to make sure you're properly registered. I think it's imperative. All right. Now this is from Georgia. I wanted to kind of share this as well. But this is from the state of Georgia. I mean, GOP, the Republicans put out this and passed this this bill that they have to now hand count their ballots in Georgia. Now, I think that there's some issues with this. For sure, I don't know how accurate all this stuff is, but it is MSNBC. So this is actually being shown on the news tonight. And so the video recording I have is just on my cell phone holding up while I was putting all this stuff together tonight. So But this is what was recorded about these guys complaining about having to do hand counts. So let's listen to this.
They passed a whole bunch of new rules, yet more new rules today, 46 days out from the election, including one that requires a hand count of ballots. I mean, reminder here that Georgia has 11 million people. I'll quote here from the Washington Post's coverage of this shock decision today in Georgia. Quote, democracy advocates accused the board of intentionally injecting chaos and uncertainty into the presidential contest. Election supervisors and poll workers said hand counts would take too long, cost money, and almost certainly produce counting errors. The Office of the Republican State Attorney General, which is responsible for advising the board, wrote in an opinion that the change was, quote, unlawful. Nevertheless, the board voted 3-2 to approve the measure. Quote, research and practice have shown again and again that hand counting ballots is less accurate.
I want you to look at, if you're a unbiased, news outlet, look how the Washington Post, look at that title. If you're supposed to be impartial, unbiased, and you're just supposed to be reporting the news as is with no bent towards the other, look at the way that is worded. Pro-Trump Georgia Election Board. It couldn't just be Georgia Election Board. It had to say pro-Trump Georgia Election Board because they wanted to cast the blame on somebody. However, it is, the majority who voted on this thing is, Republicans. The way that they word that to make, Trump look like an evil person in the sense of this. And so, I mean, I do want to hear your comments on this. Like, what do you feel about this? If this is actually accurate. Just like I said, this is MSNBC. This is literally an hour ago, right before I got on. This reported in the news. So
accurate than machine tallies, and that it can take days, weeks, or months, depending on the size of the jurisdiction. Again, 11 million people in Georgia. Quote, critics say because the hand counting requirement would almost certainly inject error into the tabulation process, it could give county boards the evidence they need, meaning the pretext they need, to delay certification. Some questioned whether it amounts to intentional sabotage of state elections.
Now let me tell you about this sabotage of state elections. Okay, I'm going to show you this. If you remember this, some of you younger voters are new to voting this election season. You may not have been eligible to vote. You probably didn't even care because you're probably, I don't know, 16, 17, whatever years old, and you probably don't remember this. But the reason why I believe that the Republicans have done this is, do you remember this? I'm gonna show this as well. I'm gonna screen share this because it was the infamous it was the infamous pulling the ballots underneath the table security camera that for whatever reason it just never got broadcast or as put in as legal evidence. And that whole ballot election fraud thing, it just kind of got dismissed like it was no big deal, and people stopped talking about it. But this is something that I'm trying to bring this up and talk at the same time. Maybe I should stop talking. I had to find this, so let me share this with you guys because I think it's imperative. But this. If some of you guys remember, like this clip right here of these tally workers. So back in 2020, the allegation was is that the polls in Georgia had shut down for the night and everybody was dismissed. So you had Republican counters, you had Democratic counters, poll workers there essentially counting all the ballots that were coming in, right? They were feeding them into machines to make sure that they were actually being counted and all that stuff. And, but then they shut the polls down. Everybody left, supposedly, but then you have all these workers still behind for whatever reason. I'm going to show you the reason, what it was, that they started pulling out extra ballots from underneath the table. And this was the video evidence that substantiates that. And for whatever reason, this whole video, it was not enough evidence to overturn the counting in Georgia. And to make them do a recount. I think they had to validate that thing several times, but they still just kind of threw this evidence out like it was no big deal. And they had to validate the count that they actually had, and they didn't go through a recount, as I remember it. Correct me if I'm wrong. But so this is that video, and I wanna show this I've kind of got it sped up in the process, and the lady that's talking, she's like, "Yep, this is the point right here where they're pulling out the ballots from underneath the table." So I'm gonna back it up just a little bit here. So I'll play this.
About 14 hours to watch it carefully because we fast forwarded through it several times and could not find that particular frame. But here's what we can tell you for sure: at about 8 o'clock in the morning, we're gonna roll this back and show it to you. There you go. So now they're gonna start pulling these ballots out from under this table. This table, the black one, was placed there by the lady with the blonde braids at about 8:22 a.m. in the morning. So she put that table there. So the same person who's staying behind now, the same person who cleared the place out under the pretense that we're going to stop counting, is the person who put the table there at 8:22 in the morning. Yeah, I saw 4 suitcases come out from underneath the table. Yeah, upper right hand, you see the gentleman in the red. So he just pulled one out. So what are these ballots doing there, separate from all the other ballots? And why are they only counting them whenever the place is cleared out with no witnesses? Is the question. So these machines can process about 3,000 ballots an hour. You have multiple machines there, and they're there for 2 hours. So you do the math. How many ballots went through those machines in those 2 hours when there was no one there to supervise, to be present, consistent with your statutes and rules, to supervise the tabulation? We believe that could easily be, and probably is certainly, beyond the margin of victory in this race.
So there you have it. I mean, that is the reason why I strongly believe that these guys, I'm gonna stop sharing this. That's what I strongly believe why the Republicans went after this, to do this hand counting, and that they are putting other measures in place to make sure that stuff like that doesn't happen again. And I think it's crucial. You know, I think it sucks? Do I think it's even doable to hand count 11 million ballots? I don't know. You know, and I don't know if they have what they mean by hand counting, if they're still going to feed them into machines for sure. But I think they need to put some measures into place, because if they got away with doing what they were just doing in that video, then I want some extra integritous things put in place to make sure, and that, you know, there's actually not people, ballot workers who work there, shut the doors down. I want police officers in there shutting the place down and getting everybody out of there, and not just a poll worker dismissing people and then them just sticking around and being able to pull out more ballots from underneath the table and counting them. Did you see it? Did you hear what you said about the amount of ballots that could be counted in a matter of hours? Like thousands of ballots could be counted in an hour, and they're just on one of those machines. And she was saying that that was enough to overturn a margin of victory. I mean, if you were like me, and I remember 2020, you could see that Trump was clearly leading in that election. And all of a sudden, midnight, all of a sudden, like the numbers flip-flop, and all of a sudden, then Biden was ahead. And then, so those are some of the things that, you know, were upsetting to a lot of people. Like, how can you not see that this is an issue right now? Like I said, that video tossed out of court. I mean, they didn't even, they just validated, they had to certify the whatever they got from Georgia, and they didn't even go back and do the recount. So yeah, do I think that we need to put extra measures in place for our elections? Absolutely. They need to be integrous. They need to have integrity. That they need to make sure that people are checking them. There should be no refusal of validating all these elections, all these ballots, to make sure that who's casting these ballots are actually alive. I remember there was some speculation that people were actually deceased and and were voting. You know, there's the speculation of just truckloads of USPS trucks pulling in after the fact and then counting the ballots, or, you know, and so there has to be some integrous policies put in place to make sure we do have an integrous, you know, election. You know, or otherwise, what are we doing? You know, we become a third world country. You know, I mean, Trump now has, you know, 2 attempts on his life. He's been in and out of course. All this stuff is election interference, but no one's saying anything about it. You know, none none of the federal courts are saying anything about that. I mean, yes, a lot of these cases have been dismissed, but still, how is this even legal for somebody to drag them through courts like this? You know, how many courts cases has Kamala had to sit in? Not that I think she needs to. I'm just saying, let's look at the comparison here. How many attempts of life have Kamala had in her life? I'm not saying that she needs to be. I'm just saying, look at the comparison. Why do they not want him in the office? Why was there a bomb threat the last, rally that he was at? So anyway, I think that for sure, go out and vote. 45 million Christians did not vote 2020. 15 million weren't registered. Go out and vote. Make sure you're properly registered to vote. So go to your voter registration office and make sure you do that. Make sure you take care of that ASAP. There's a deadline to be registered, and I think it's most states is 30 days prior to the election that you're registered. Some states, your day of the election, you can register to vote, but don't take the chance. Don't lollygag on this. Don't lollygag on this. Don't sit on the sidelines. Make sure you take every precaution. You do all your research. Make sure who you vote for is who you want to vote for. But by all means, make sure you do vote. Don't just not vote. Our country is definitely at stake, and we need to make sure that we as Christians exercise our voice to make sure that we protect our rights, our liberties, our religious freedoms that we have as Christians. And if not, they'll be taken away. And then if you didn't vote, then what are you going to do? So anyway, I'm out of here for right now. I love you guys. Leave in the comments below. Hey, go get some of our merch, visualtestaments.com. Go check out some of our merch that we have on there. We have a lot of Trump merch on there. We have a lot of other merch on there, Christian merch that you can wear. So go check it out. Love you guys. Bye for now and peace.